If you look at the political right today, the biggest conversation isn't really about, governing. It's about this intense internal fight.
Yeah, some are calling it a conservative civil war. And it is incredibly complex.
It is.
And the sources we've been digging into, they don't treat this as just, simple political chaos. It's actually a really necessary, if very messy, ideological debate.
Unnecessary one.
You've got these fiercely passionate people who are genuinely arguing, in good faith, about what the future of American conservatism actually looks like, especially, when the shadow of the current leader, Donald Trump, eventually starts to fade.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack that internal fight, try to figure out why unity is so hard for them right now. And I think this is critical, how this political fracture is tied directly to the economic anxiety crushing Gen Z.
And the culture. All these profound cultural trends that are underpinning everything from how we date to, well, whether we can even buy a house.
Okay, so let's start with that schism on the right. Because the first thing that just jumps out is the hypocrisy around these new purity tests.
Oh, absolutely. For years, the big rallying cry was against, canceling on the left.
Yeah.
The ideological conformity.
No.
Now it's a feast of them eating their own. Look at that absurd situation the sources point to. They're demanding that Tucker Carlson's son, who works for J.D. Vance, publicly disavow his own father.
His own father.
The demand for his silence to be broken is itself a purity test.
It's the ultimate political theater, and we saw this exact same drama, but in reverse, just a few years ago with the actress Sydney Sweeney.
Right, with her mom's birthday party.
Exactly. Photos came out with people wearing conservative hats and shirts, and the right just rallied around her. They celebrated that she refused to disavow her family. It was held up as this, inspiration.
And you see the contradiction immediately. You praise a celebrity for standing by her family, then you demand a political staffer condemn his own father for expediency. It perfectly illustrates what one of our sources called the bro science theory of group unification.
Okay, I love that name. Let's unpack that.
The idea is pretty simple. Unity is easiest when your group is, quote, outside the tent pissing in.
So when you're the opposition.
Exactly. Your whole identity is defined by a shared, binding distaste for the outgroup. You're all unified by wanting to get power.
But the moment you get that power,
the moment you're inside the tent pissing out, that immediate external threat is gone, or at least it's lessened. So you look around and you start scrutinizing the people right next to you.
you become the establishment.
And the infighting begins. Because the primary enemy, the thing that held you all together, has been neutralized. Suddenly these minor differences, they become existential threats.
And what's so fascinating here is that this is all preemptive. The sources are pretty clear on this. This isn't just about current policy.
No. It's a high-stakes fight to define the new conservatism without Trump, even though he still has, 3 years left in his term. They are wrestling for the soul of the movement right now.
And that wrestling match has basically fragmented the movement into 4 major factions.
At least 4, yeah, all vying for control.
So walk us through them. What do those 4 look like?
Okay, so first you have the establishment neocons. Think long-serving politicians. Their view is, traditionally Reaganite. Strong on foreign policy intervention, traditional on trade.
The old guard.
The old guard. Then second, you have the younger, cooler right. You see them in media circles. Ben Shapiro, the Babylon Bee guys, they're generally populist on culture, but, and this is key, they remain very strongly pro-Israel.
Okay, and that brings us to the big split, right? The third group.
Yeah, the far right, or as it's sometimes called, the Fuentes camp. They are defined by an isolationist populist agenda and are very, very notably anti-Israel.
And that's the fault line.
It's a massive fault line. This divergence on foreign policy, especially on global conflicts and aid, it's forcing everyone else to pick a side.
Which leaves the fourth group, the ones in the middle.
The middle, or the unifiers. So like McGinn Kelly's a good example. They're trying to hold it all together. They'll critique the far-right populists and the old guard, really prioritizing unity over any kind of purity test.
And what happens to them?
They get hit from both sides, constantly. The younger right says they're not pro-Israel enough, and the furthest right says they're too soft, too much like the establishment. They're basically a ping-pong ball in these internal battles.
This political fracturing, this sort of inability to unify even when you're in power, it's all being fueled by something inescapable.
The economy.
Deep economic anxiety, the kind that is just crushing young people, especially Gen Z.
This is the reality check. There might have been some initial excitement about the administration's early moves, like executive orders or deportations, but there's this profound trepidation among Gen Z voters because they aren't seeing any tangible, felt change in their actual lives.
Right. It's been about 12 months, and the core complaint is affordability. People are just wondering, where is the relief? Chop chop, where is it?
Home costs are just astronomical. Groceries are eating up more and more of the paycheck. This isn't an abstract crisis. It's an immediate paralyzing nervousness about your own future.
And the data, the objective data, points to a really long-term decline here. The average age for a first-time home buyer is now over 40.
Over 40 years old.
Yeah.
The highest it has ever been. And for repeat buyers, the average age is 61.
So if you're 25 and you're looking at that data, you're not seeing economic headwinds. You're seeing a brick wall. The traditional path is just gone.
And you layer that on top of this crushing feeling of betrayal. The sources really highlight this. So many young people, especially young white men, feel like they did everything right.
Got the grades, went to the university, took out the loans.
And then they struggle to find meaningful work. And they often point to the perceived impact of, DEI hires. The fundamental promise of the American meritocracy just feels broken to them.
So the question becomes, what was all that for? All that money, all that time?
Right. And this leads to a confusion between objective reality and the feeling of reality. We tend to fall into this trap of intergenerational competition, right? We compare our struggle to our parents' or grandparents' perceived golden era.
And that comparison just makes you feel defeated.
But this is where the script flips. Our sources point to a very grim metric for the average American adult today. They are obese, divorced, and have less than $1,000 in the bank. That's the objective baseline.
Which is an incredibly low bar.
A very low bar. And that introduces what one source calls the agency bracket. The idea is that your overall life bracket, your starting point, determined by genetics, upbringing, time, and place, that is incredibly hard to move.
You can't change the whole economic system by yourself. That's the objective reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But your ability to move from the bottom of that bracket to the top of it, to succeed relative to your peers,
Yeah.
that is almost entirely about individual effort, diligence, mindset.
So if the general population is sort of defeated by how hard things are, your own drive becomes a massive advantage. You have way more agency inside your lane than you think.
Precisely. But this creates a huge tension. Because what if you maximize your individual agency and the system is still fundamentally rigged against you? What if the bracket itself is just too low?
Then the individual effort idea just hits a wall.
The wall of structural affordability and the demand for political change becomes overwhelming.
And that tension is leading directly to the rise of what you could call the pop culture politician. Look at the Mamdani election win in New York City.
Right. That victory was not some deep philosophical embrace of socialism.
No.
It was a desperate cry for immediate affordability. It was driven by the very clear promise of free housing and groceries.
When you can't pay your rent, it's hard to argue with the person promising to give you things for free.
And this connects Mamdani and Trump as really two sides of the same coin. They are entertainers. They connect with the average person on a level that feels authentic.
Obama started it, right, bringing politics into pop culture. But Trump just accelerated it. He was the ultimate entertainer.
So whether it's Trump driving a trash truck or Mamdani doing Tai Chi in the park, they project a kind of relatability that the old guard just can't match.
And Mamdani's rival, Cuomo, lost precisely because he was seen as stiff, detached.
He ran these unauthentic campaigns, overly polished ads, clumsy AI attacks. Mamdani created viral moments and seemed congruent, like he actually believed what he was selling. And that won over voters who were just sick of sanitized politician speak.
And challengers always have that advantage, don't they? They haven't had to face the physics of reality yet.
We saw it with Mamdani immediately. The quick reversals as soon as he won, asking for more money from sources he swore he'd reject. His victory party had a cash bar.
The moment you win, the physics set in, the budget constraints become real.
So what does this tell us about the path forward for, say, a Republican candidate like J.D. Vance, who's trying to win over this same demographic?
The sources outline 3 huge errors to avoid.
The first one is losing your authenticity. If you become too polished, too diplomatic, too politician speak, you're done. Vance has to keep that relatable working class tone.
Second, focusing too much on foreign affairs, shipping billions of dollars overseas.
For a generation worried about eviction, that just feels so distant. They're asking, why are my tax dollars solving foreign problems when I can't even afford my own?
And the third, probably the most critical point, prioritizing owning the libs over owning a house.
Yes. The focus has to shift to making life tangibly better. The culture war is entertaining, but it doesn't pay the rent.
And this point was just brutally underlined by that H-1B visa conflict, when the administration argued that, we don't have the talent in America and we need to import workers.
It just felt like a direct slap in the face. A personal insult to young, educated Americans who are struggling to find jobs. The message they heard was, you are inadequate. Your expensive degree means nothing.
That feeling of inadequacy, of betrayal, it's not just economic. We see that exact same instability bleeding right into the cultural fabric of the country.
They're completely intertwined. The political and economic turmoil is shaping how we relate to each other personally.
We're caught in what the source material calls the shiny object cycle.
It's this repetitive culture war loop. A woke story breaks, the right reacts, it gets a signal boost, the left counter reacts, and then you get the meta reaction of everyone telling each other to touch grass.
And the key insight there is that this attention economy makes collective distraction a more potent political force than actually solving, high-stakes issues.
Like the fentanyl crisis or rising male suicide rates.
And this cycle of disavowal, this zero tolerance, we see it mirrored in our personal lives. It's creating a culture of what's called toxic empathy.
Yeah, the data on this is wild. An analysis of relationship advice subreddits since 2010 shows this massive, verifiable surge in advice to cut contact, go no contact, break up.
And at the same time, advice about compromise or communication has just plummeted.
You have people who are isolated and unhappy, encouraging other people to embrace isolation and be miserable together. It's much more comfortable to validate someone's misery than to suggest the hard work of compromise.
This search for the path of least resistance has even exposed these huge cultural movements. I mean, look at Ozempic.
It basically revealed body positivity to be a kind of scam. You had genuine outrage from influencers who built their brands on it, like Remy when they lost weight. They were seen as betraying their base.
Canceled for no longer being miserable.
Optimism and self-improvement have become radical acts.
And this pursuit of what you could call hyper-independence is one of the biggest cultural shifts. We see it perfectly captured in that Kelsey Ballerini song, I Sit in Parks.
Right. She gets divorced at 30 to chase massive career success, but now at 33, she's sitting in a park worrying about the cost of that.
And she juxtaposes her friend, who is due in March, her album in April, and the need to refill my Lexapro.
That one line just synthesizes the damaging lie we've been told for decades, that you can have it all at the exact same time without any real structural sacrifice.
But new motherhood, as our sources describe it, is an experience of being overwhelmed and overtouched, a period where you are just broken open.
It illustrates the absolute necessity of humility, of surrender, of relying on other people. All qualities rejected by that hyper-independent archetype. I mean, there's a reason for the historical 40-day laying-in period.
Where the community just completely supports the new mother.
Because the recovery demands complete surrender. The hardship in these vital experiences, like raising a child, is exactly what creates the meaning.
And we are, finally, starting to see a bit of a cultural countershift, with role models. Taylor Swift getting engaged, a very traditional move, was seen by some in the child-free community as a threat.
Because they preferred her when she was unlucky in love. It validated their own choices.
Meanwhile, you have these young cultural bellwethers like Millie Bobby Brown and Timothy Chalamet, who are openly talking in a positive way about family and having children.
It's a quiet cultural intervention, a sign the pendulum might be swinging back.
So if we pull all of this together, what's the big takeaway? The political struggles on the right, that infighting the second they get power, it really mirrors the struggles in our own personal life.
It does. We've developed this pervasive cultural inability to tolerate discomfort or compromise, whether that's discomfort inside a political coalition or the painful sacrifice it takes to raise a family.
The central finding here seems to be that both unity and personal meaning come from the same place.
Shared, unavoidable struggle. We consistently try to find a shortcut around the difficulty required for worthwhile outcomes, whether that's economic stability, political unity, or the meaning you get from starting a family. But the meaning is in the effort itself.
We often hear that profound truth, that in retrospect, the struggle will strike you as the most beautiful part. So if meaningful life experiences, from a career to raising a child, always involve difficulty, sacrifice, and discomfort, then here is a provocative thought for you to carry forward. What worthwhile struggle are you currently avoiding by seeking only the path of least resistance?